Hi guys, and welcome back to SwitchUp. Today we're going to talk about 5 of the existing open world games on the Nintendo Switch, and then what, a few that are coming up?
A few that are coming up as well. So we're talking about any game that has a huge open world area that you can explore, you can travel across, and be left to your own devices basically.
Yeah, not ones that are combinations of lots of small open world areas. Let's get on with the list. First up then, we've got the one and only Breath of the Wild. We're going to talk about on each one of these games maybe some of the things we like about them, and then things that potentially we'd like to see improved if there are sequels.
Yep. I've been a big Zelda fan for a long time.
Yeah.
My favourite Zelda games are the top-down traditional 2D Zelda games, but Breath of the Wild was a breath of fresh air, wasn't it? To be fair. You know, the way it went about things was unbelievable. The world was quite majestic to explore, wasn't it? The Korok seeds and the shrines were a big part of that. They forced you to explore. You wanted to explore every last little bit of this world, which was a very clever idea.
Yeah. Personally, in terms of improvements, it didn't feel like there was enough like non-player character involvement. Do you know what I mean? You'd speak to someone and they'd say a generic line and then it would be like, oh, see you later. And the questing system and the way it was ordered, it just didn't feel very fleshed out.
The problem, I mean, I really enjoyed the world, but it was very sparse, wasn't it?
Good word.
Yeah, absolutely. But so in terms of what they could improve, they just need to populate it a little bit more.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be with people. No. Just make what you're seeing a bit more interesting.
Yeah.
Not quite so much desert.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Yeah, let us know down in the comments, how would you improve Breath of the Wild 2?
Our next one we're going to talk about then is Skyrim. Again, a game that's been around forever, hasn't it? A long time now. I have played about 5 hours of Skyrim on the Switch. I'd never played it before that, but I had played the
Oblivion.
Oblivion, thank you, the one before. Very, very good game.
Great game. Absolutely brilliant. So in terms of things that we like about this one, personally, I love when you can completely customize your character. So you can just create whatever monstrosity you want, go out into the world and completely leave the quest as well. It's very much an old school formula, like when they had Morrowind and then Oblivion. They just let you go. I remember I was lost in Morrowind for about 6 hours, didn't have a clue what I was doing. But then Oblivion made it a little bit more accessible. So for me, I just love the level of freedom you've got here.
I don't know if it's the same for Skyrim because I've not put enough into it, but in Oblivion you could become like a thief or something.
Yes.
You go down a huge pathway of being that and then you could change to something else. That's very cool. I really enjoyed that aspect of it as well.
It's one of those systems where if you use a skill, that advances rather than like, I want to be a blah.
Yeah, exactly.
You just do blah and then level up in that. There you go, do blah. Nice. Informative.
Definitely.
In terms of things that we would improve, that's quite a tricky one. What do you reckon? Rather than the back end, so all of the things you can do, it would be the front end. They've used the same engine for ever. They've used that. It's a modified version of the same engine from Oblivion, from Morrowind.
Really?
Yeah, it's just like with the Call of Duty games. It started to really affect the gameplay. They're notoriously bad at designing faces in this series.
That would have been mine actually. When you're talking to a character and they've got that deadpan sort of expression about what you're talking about. Okay, next game then we have The Witcher 3, which I still haven't played, although I have seen some of the series now. I watched it with you.
Have you? Yes, you did.
We watched a good 4 or 5 episodes of it. Yeah, it's good, decent. I liked it.
Nice.
I liked it.
Very good, yeah. So The Witcher 3, as most people would know, has a very large open world element to it, and it's really done nicely on the Switch actually. I would say that perhaps it's a bit of a steep learning curve for new players, and there's a chance that in the first 4 or 5 hours it's a bit slow, like it can be a bit slow paced.
Okay.
But it's a brilliant game. There's tons of side quests, like literally tons. Like, you know when you go to your map and you can zoom out and there's just pins everywhere. Well, here it's question marks just all over the place, and they're actually intriguing stories. Like one thing that CD Projekt Red do well is creating the little side quests that are like so unusual. I always say about the one with the pigs, but there's like a woman whose son or someone has stolen a frying pan. I know it sounds ludicrous, but it's just like, oh okay, I didn't expect that. It kind of hooks you in. In terms of improvements, we were just saying one of our favourite series is Monster Hunter, and it's that being able to play together and take down difficult creatures, isn't it?
Definitely.
So something like that in Witcher, where it had some multiplayer element, maybe a drop in with your friends, so they could kind of drop in and help you fight certain creatures. That would be amazing.
It's pie in the sky.
It's pie in the sky.
It's just a dream, isn't it? But it would be cool, wouldn't it? Yeah.
Be very cool.
Big thanks to Ravpower who've sponsored this video. They've essentially wanted us to show you these two power banks for your Nintendo Switch. This one's 10K and this one's 20K milliamp hour. Now these have two ports on the top. You've got your micro USB port as well as a USB 3 charging port. This will do about 2 on your Switch and this will do about 3 or 4, maybe even more if you can get the juice out of it. They support quick charge as well, and there's a discount link down below if you would like to support the channel and buy their product. Let's get on with the video.
Okay, next up then we have Shakedown Hawaii, which is an open world game but goes way back to the traditional, very first Grand Theft Auto top-down view.
Yeah.
Which for me is perfect. I loved this game. I loved that you had this big open city to explore. I loved the quirky humour that you found within the shop titles and things like that. Just the little nods and references to popular culture. I mean, the sprite work was fantastic as well. Lovely, colourful game. Have you played this one?
I have not played it. It is still in the plastic, which is quite upsetting. Nice little bit of box art there.
It's well worth playing. Fantastic game. So there's obviously a prequel to this as well, Retro City Rampage, which is an 8-bit style, and this is more of a 16/32-bit. In terms of improvements, it has a money system. Like you build an empire basically, and you have to take over different businesses, and they become part of your empire.
Yeah.
But by the end game, you've got so much money, it's completely pointless.
Right. Okay.
So they could have done more with that, and I'd like to see them do more with that. But other than that, really good game. Very good game.
Lovely. Next up then we've got Assassin's Creed 4 and the Rebel Collection, which has Rogue in it?
Rogue, yeah.
Yeah. So with these you can just sail off into the distance with your ship, visit all the different islands. There's a few improvements, in fact there's a lot of improvements that you could do to this game. I love the Sid Meier's Pirates element to it where you can upgrade your ship and improve it. What about you?
The first one I ever played was Assassin's Creed 2 on the Xbox 360. And I loved that freedom of movement and that fast running. It was very much like that James Bond film at the start, Casino Royale, when he's jumping up and that. It reminds me of that, and that's what I always really liked about this series. Climbing the buildings and stuff. But I agree with you, there's a lot that can be improved.
There's a lot that can be improved. Okay, so in terms of the improvements then, I'm thinking of a sequel to this game. So don't worry, don't look at Odyssey and think, oh no, they've got some of that in Odyssey. I'm thinking if you remade this one. And they just need, again, a bit like Zelda, they need more within the main quests and the little bird box missions where you would go in and get a little, like, go and assassinate this one guy. It needs more life to it. You had all these people walking around, and in something like Skyrim, everyone has a pre-defined day. You know, they go and do X, Y, and Z. They've got their jobs. Here it just feels like generated people. It doesn't feel alive.
Yes. What I would say about this one, I loved finding a new island and having a look around the island, but I always felt slightly disappointed that there wasn't a lot on them. You'd find a panther or you'd find a turtle, and you'd hunt. But they could have been so much more interesting, those little islands, you know?
I think that's it. One of the main things that keeps coming up for both of us is the density of what's available within an area. The world, so The Witcher, all the time you'll find little caves and be exploring down underground. You'll be like, holy crap, they've built this whole area that no one will find. But in Zelda and this, it's empty, isn't it? And you're like, oh, you go on this huge epic adventure and don't find anything. It can just feel a bit...
I think Zelda made up for that in some respects by having the shrines. Because although you were exploring still and you would get sidetracked, if you found a shrine at the end of it, you wouldn't feel disappointed, like you just wasted a whole bunch of time.
Yeah, that's true. That's very true.
But I do still think it needed a bit more in it.
Next up is a game that I reviewed on the channel, and it's called Ashen. I really enjoyed this game. After light is returned to the world, it's once again threatened, and you have to defeat some bosses to essentially stop that happening. The world itself is really interesting, although it did feel a bit like they could have potentially put some more interesting elements into it, much like we've said about, well, most of these other titles except bar maybe The Witcher. The combat's quite straightforward. It takes a bit of a Dark Souls approach, but it's nowhere near as difficult. The core mechanics though are solid, and you upgrade your character as you go along. I did find it quite easy to get lost in this world. The map system isn't the greatest, but there's also some expanded content that you can purchase on the Nintendo Switch in the form of some DLC. And there's a new game mode of sorts that unlocks about halfway through your playtime. It's a really nice game, this one, and potentially one that's been missed by some players. In the absence of a GTA game on Switch, come on now, why haven't we got GTA 5 yet? We had Saints Row drop recently, and we also have Saints Row 4 coming. Now Saints Row 3, when it launched, is a very good game, but it's quite an old game. and the performance was shocking. They've improved it massively, they've added dynamic resolution scaling to improve that even further, and thankfully now the performance isn't a hindrance to the gameplay. What I would say is that it's definitely one of the weakest ways to play it in comparison to other systems. So if you can, well, if you have another system, I'd probably go with those, unless you want to have it on the handheld. It's absolutely crazy in terms of the storyline, but the characters, and they really are characters, are one of the key draws to the series, as well as the ability to completely design yours from scratch. A hilarious game, and one never to play around your mum. I absolutely loved Red Faction, the original that launched on PlayStation 2 I believe, but never got to play Red Faction Guerrilla, and my goodness, I wish I had sooner. It's a brilliant game. It has an open world Mars, where the majority of your missions will be based around destruction. The environment and all the buildings are completely destructible, and you'll do this using a variety of different explosives and abilities, and the iconic hammer that Mason carries with him. It's great fun, as I say, but the storyline is also excellent. I really enjoyed it. It's like stepping straight into the shoes of Arnie as he descends in Total Recall. Really good, except your eyes don't pop out. The first of our upcoming games then is Gods and Monsters from Ubisoft. Now, there was a lot of speculation that potentially they'd drop development of the Nintendo Switch version, but there have been quite a few placeholders popping up on different stores for the Switch version, so it's looking promising. There isn't a huge amount of information available, but what I can tell you is that it's definitely an open world free roaming adventure game. There are a number of dungeons within the world, and as you'd expect, you'll be fighting against many different varieties of mythical monster. The story goes that essentially the gods in the world here have fallen victim to Typhon, who's described as the most deadly of all the creatures in Greek mythology. And you'll go into the island to save the day, to save those gods. While you do this, they'll bless you with different powers and abilities, which you then use to beat the other creatures, which include Gorgons, Hydras, and Cyclopses. Wonder if Jason's there with his golden fleece. I have to say fair play to Ubisoft here. They could have just churned out Assassin's Creed 912, but they clearly thought to themselves that it's time to do something a bit different. And whether it's a success or a failure, the premise certainly interests me. Next up, we've got The Outer Worlds, which was inspired by games like Fallout. When you become lost on a journey in your colonist ship and then wake up a few decades later, you'll find yourself in all kinds of trouble within the Halcyon colony. The best way for me to describe this is almost a mixture of some of the Bioshock elements with many of the Fallout elements. It definitely has that quirkiness I'd associate with a Bioshock title, especially the one set in the sky, and it is a very good game. As you'd hope, you can completely create and customize your own character and undertake missions and side missions in any order you choose. What's interesting is that you can recruit non-player characters who will in turn have their own missions that you can help them on. And let's be honest, that's Fallout, isn't it? But it's also one of my favourite parts of Fallout. I've purposely stayed away from the majority of this game. I received a review code for the PC version a while back. I do want to give a final shout out to Dragon Quest Builders 2, as well as Minecraft and Terraria, because let's be honest, in their own way, they are definitely open world games. But for the sake of this list, we kept our criteria quite strict.
So as always, thank you very much for watching. Thank you to our Patreons for your continued support.
And for all things Switch all the time, keep it Switch up. Cheers, guys. See ya! You're waiting. Ah!